All right, let's dive into a story that sounds like it's straight out of a spy novel, but it's actually about the money in your pocket. We're going to unpack the source material's pretty controversial story about how the U.S. Federal Reserve was secretly created. Let's get right into it.
So let me just start with this question. What if I told you that the entire financial system we all rely on wasn't born from some open, honest debate in Congress? What if, instead, it was all cooked up in total secrecy by just 7 men on a private island? The scene is set on Jekyll Island, Georgia, back in November of 1910. One by one, 7 men sneak onto a private train car, trying not to be seen together. They're using only their first names. They've told their families and their staff that they're just going on a duck hunt, but their real destination was a secluded island where their mission was to design a brand new monetary system for America.
So why all the cloak and dagger stuff? Well, according to the source, the context here is absolutely critical. Just 3 years earlier, in 1907, a massive financial panic nearly brought the entire American economy to its knees. One guy, the titan J.P. Morgan, literally had to step in and personally organize a private bailout. He saved the day, but everyone knew it was just a band-aid. The top bankers realized they needed something permanent, a central bank that could bail them out next time. But here's the thing, they had a huge problem. The source really hammers this point home. Everyday Americans, for most of the country's history, hated the idea of a central bank. Hated it. You had President Andrew Jackson, who famously went to war with the Second Bank of the United States back in the 1830s, calling it a monster built to make the rich richer. To the public, a central bank just meant one thing: Wall Street controlling the country's money. The very idea was toxic. So, how do you build a central bank when everyone hates central banks? Well, you assemble a secret team to do it behind closed doors. And this wasn't just any team. According to our source, these 7 men together represented financial empires that controlled about a quarter of the entire world's wealth at the time. Just let that sink in.
So let's meet the players, the architects of this whole thing. You've got Senator Nelson Aldrich. He's the political insider with heavy ties to both the Rockefellers and the Morgans. Then you have the Morgan crew, his right-hand man Henry Davison and Benjamin Strong, who would later become the Fed's first leader. Representing the Rockefeller empire was Frank Vanderlip, and then there's Paul Warburg. The source positions him as the real brains of the operation, the guy who brought the European model of central banking to the table.
For 9 solid days, these guys are holed up, hammering out a plan. And according to the source, the real genius of it wasn't just the economics, it was the deception. They set out to create a system that looked public but was privately controlled, looked decentralized but was actually run from New York, and looked like it served the people but was really built to serve the banks.
Okay, this is where it gets really clever. Let's walk through how they pulled it off. First, the name, Federal Reserve System. I mean, it sounds so official, right? Federal sounds like government, reserve sounds safe, system makes it sound like it's not just one big bank. It's brilliant marketing. Second, the structure. They created 12 regional banks to make it look like power was spread out. But get this, those banks would be privately owned by, you guessed it, other banks. To give it the appearance of public oversight, they put a government board on top. But the real power, the engine of the whole machine, was the New York Fed, run by Wall Street. Now here's the magic trick. The Fed could literally create money out of thin air to buy government bonds, basically giving the government a limitless credit card. And the best part for them? The private member banks get guaranteed profits and bailouts, while you, the taxpayer, get stuck with all the risk of inflation and economic crises.
All right, so they've got this master plan. Now they just have to sell it to Congress and the American people. And their first try was a total disaster.
So check this out. Senator Aldrich brings the plan to Congress, and it's immediately called out for what it is, the Wall Street plan. It was dead on arrival. But they didn't give up. They just got smarter. They took the exact same plan, slapped a new cover on it, the Federal Reserve Act, and had the other political party, the Democrats, presented as a populist reform designed to break Wall Street's power. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And it totally worked. They even pushed the vote through late on December 23, 1913, when many in Congress had already left for the Christmas holiday.
Now you might be thinking this all sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Well, years later, when the system was firmly in place, the people who were in the room started talking. And this quote right here is a bombshell. That's Frank Vanderlip, one of the original 7, writing openly in a national magazine. He's basically saying, yep, that secret trip to Jekyll Island, that's where the whole thing was born. According to the source, by the time he admitted it, it was too late to turn back.
So that's the how. But what about the what? What have been the consequences of this system for the last 100+ years?
Well, the source material points to some pretty staggering long-term impacts.
First up, government debt. The Fed's ability to print money to buy government bonds got put to the test almost immediately with World War I. Look at these numbers. U.S. debt ballooned from $3 billion to $27 billion in just a few short years. The source argues that this machine, built on Jekyll Island, enabled a level of government spending that was unthinkable before, paving the way for the tens of trillions in debt we see today.
And what about the money in your pocket? Well, a central claim of the source is that the Fed's constant money printing has systematically destroyed the dollar's value. What you could buy for $1 in 1913 costs more than $25 today. That's a staggering 96% loss in purchasing power. It's not that things got more expensive, it's that your money became weaker.
The source also lays the blame for our endless boom and bust cycles right at the Fed's feet. The argument is that by manipulating interest rates, the Fed fuels these huge asset bubbles like the Roaring '20s or the housing boom before 2008. Then, when the bubbles inevitably pop, the system allows for massive bank bailouts, which shifts all the losses onto the public, while the biggest players consolidate even more wealth and power.
This all leads to a really crucial concept from the source material, the debt trap. The idea is actually pretty simple. In our system, money is created when debt is created. So think about it. If we actually paid off all the national debt, the money supply itself would just disappear. Poof, total economic collapse. From this viewpoint, the debt isn't meant to be repaid. The system is designed for it to grow forever, guaranteeing a permanent stream of interest payments from the taxpayers to the banks.
And this brings us to the source's ultimate conclusion, and it's a chilling one. The massive debt, the constant inflation, the recurring crises, these aren't bugs in the system. They aren't failures. They are features. The machine is working exactly as it was designed to work back on Jekyll Island over a century ago.
So I'll just leave you with this final question to chew on. It's really the heart of this entire narrative. If a system that controls a nation's money, our money, is designed in secret by the very people who stand to profit from it the most, can it ever truly be aligned with the interests of the public it's supposed to serve?